From Hairenik Media, good evening and welcome to this week's newscast, covering top stories impacting Armenia and Armenians. Tonight we cover significant news on the ARF World Congress, ongoing detention of Armenian hostages, and the launch of the new Hairenik and Armenian weekly websites. Let's begin from Armenia, where on March 6, the 35th World Congress of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, which started on February 26, ended its proceedings with the election of the following members to the party's highest body, the Bureau: Armen Rustamian, Armenia; Lilit Galestian, Armenia; Daron Donoyan, Armenia; Arsen Hambartsumian, Armenia; Sevan Danielian, Iran; Khajak Mgrtichian, US; Daron Der Khachadurian, US; Hovsep Der Kevorkian, France; Murat Papazian, France; Hagop Pakraduni, Lebanon; and Rafi Donabedian, Canada. At its initial meeting, the ARF Bureau elected Armen Rustamian as its representative. At the conclusion of the World Congress, a statement was issued outlining the strategic priorities of the party. Now let's go to our correspondent, Nare Navasartian, for more. Nare, welcome.
Hi, Annie.
Hello. Nare, let's start with the ARF 35th World Congress statement. What were the key messages and strategic priorities in that statement?
The 35th World Congress of ARF noted the serious geopolitical challenges that Armenia is facing, the Artsakh genocide and occupation, Baku's continuous military aggression and territorial ambitions, as well as Armenia's deep crisis of governance, alienation from the diaspora and the governing regimes, war on our national values and priorities. Examining the situation, the newly elected Bureau delineated the following strategic goals for preserving the Armenian identity and building a nation-state of a higher quality. Number 1, strengthening Armenian statehood, restoring its territorial integrity and sovereignty, building a democratic, legal, social state in accordance with the Declaration of Independence. Number 2, national consolidation around the Artsakh liberation agenda, implementing international legal and political guarantees to ensure the collective return of Artsakh Armenians, the realization of their fundamental rights. Number 3, strengthening the Armenian army, defense and security systems. Number 4, pursuing international recognition of the Armenian genocide and subsequent reparations. Number 5, adopting a foreign policy built on national and state interests, overcoming the security threats. Number 6, organizational strengthening of the diaspora, national and political consolidation around pan-Armenian agendas. The World Congress also declared change of power in Armenia a necessary precondition for stopping this anti-national, anti-state process that is being implemented by the Armenian authorities. And this is the change of power is also a way to ensure Armenia's security and viability.
Thank you, Nare. Today, the ARF Bureau answered journalist questions at the ARF Christopor Mikhaelian Center in Yerevan. We know you were there. What insights can you share from the press conference?
Rustamian congratulated Lilit Galsian on being the first woman on the ARF Bureau, and Galsian in turn emphasized the need to create a healthy political environment free of violence and repressions so characteristic of the current regime. In his speech, Rustamian noted that the current regime is leading Armenia on the path to Turkification and said that in times of security challenges, Armenia needs to be making new alliances instead of losing them. Most notably, he mentioned the need to strengthen partnership with Russia and sign a military pact with Iran to prevent the so-called Zangezur corridor, Baku's project to cut Armenia's southern border. Rustamian also prioritized the works being done for the release of David Ishkhanian and the rest of the Artsakh political leadership, and announced that Ishkhanian will remain a bureau member up until his release, where he can return to work. ARF Bureau member from Lebanon, Hagop Pakraduni, noted that as Lebanon and Syria are going through critical times and facing attacks by pan-Turkist Zionist forces, the preservation of the Armenians of the Middle East is not just about these communities, but also about the implementation of Armenia's goals. the realization of our common goals. Today, on March 10th, the Bureau also met with the President of Artsakh, Samvel Shahramanyan, to learn more about the state of the rights of Artsakhdis, their living conditions in Armenia. They emphasized the importance of maintaining Artsakh's public institutions and discussed steps towards realization of right of return to Artsakh, to their homeland. The newly elected Bureau met with Garagin's second Catholicos of all Armenians. They discussed the challenges Armenia is facing, the need to strengthen ties with the diaspora, and to foster pan-Armenian unity. Garagin second familiarized himself with the works and the plans and aspirations for the Bureau for the next 4 years. And for me too, being at the press conference, it was really inspiring to see all this new energy that in these dark times for Armenian statehood will be directed towards the realization of our national goals, our national agendas. And I think the timing is perfect for us to turn these times around and achieve rebirth in regards to strengthening of statehood, strengthening of Artsakhdis and their right to return.
Our correspondent in the field, Nare Navasartian, thank you.
Thank you, Ani.
Since November 2020, Azerbaijan has unlawfully detained at least 23 Armenians, including civilians, former officials, and military personnel. Many have endured torture and degrading treatment, as confirmed by human rights organizations. Azerbaijan's refusal to release them violates international law, including the Geneva Conventions. Human rights advocates are calling for an independent investigation into their abuse and for the international community to take immediate action to ensure their release and hold Azerbaijan accountable. Volker Turk, the UN Commissioner on Human Rights, joined the growing international pressure to demand the release of the Armenian POWs held in Baku. At the 58th session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva, Turk directly addressed the plight of arbitrarily detained Armenians in Azerbaijan, calling for their immediate release and insisted their right to a fair trial be respected fully. He also expressed hope that ongoing Armenia-Azerbaijan peace talks will foster truth, healing, and reconciliation, and he reaffirmed the UN's support in this process.
Following closely the ongoing peace negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan in the hope that they will lead to a process of truth-telling, healing and reconciliation, we stand ready to support. All those arbitrarily detained in Azerbaijan, including ethnic Armenians, must be released immediately and fair trial rights must be respected fully.
Levik Khachatryan, a member of the GAMP initiative, has launched an indefinite hunger strike outside the UN office in Armenia. His demand is clear. International organizations and global powers must apply all available pressure to end the torture and humiliation of Armenian hostages held in Azerbaijan's prisons. Mane Tandilian, co-founder of the Country for Living Party, refused to meet Armenia's human rights defender Anahit Manasyan during her hunger strike supporting Armenian hostages in Baku. Tandilian was hospitalized for the second time after suffering heart complications, but she remains resolute in her protest at Freedom Square, demanding justice for Ruben Vardanyan and other detainees. During the ongoing trials in Baku, former Artsakh Defense Army Commander Levon Mnatsakanyan reaffirmed his participation in Artsakh's liberation struggle, adding he would have fought even more if necessary. Former Artsakh Presidents Arkady Gukasyan and Bako Sahakyan also defended Armenia's role in the 44-day war, stressing Armenia's legal obligation as Artsakh's security guarantor. Sahagyan underscored that Artsakh's fate is not a matter for criminal persecution. The International Union of Socialist Youth, IUSY, issued a strong condemnation of Azerbaijan's trials against Armenian hostages, calling them politically motivated and illegitimate. IUSY, of which the ARF Youth Organization is a full member, demanded immediate release of hostages and urged the global community to act decisively to hold Azerbaijan accountable for these human rights abuses, adding to the mounting international pressure on Baku. Meanwhile, Ruben Vardanyan's condition has become critical as his hunger strike continues. Azerbaijani authorities continued to force him into court despite his rapidly declining health. Held in isolation, deprived of water, and denied medical care, Vardanyan's plight symbolizes Azerbaijan's blatant human rights violations. International media and humanitarian observers have been blocked from seeing him or other detainees. Advocates urge Armenians worldwide to demand stronger actions from their governments to secure his release. International Counsel Jared Gencer criticized Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan for failing to take meaningful steps to secure Vardanyan's release. Gencer acknowledged Armenia's recent foreign ministry statement denouncing Azerbaijan's actions, but said far more should be done. He compared Pashinyan's passive stance unfavorably with proactive efforts of U.S. President Donald Trump to secure American hostages abroad, urging Armenia to match those efforts. In major escalation, Azerbaijan has ordered the expulsion of the International Committee of the Red Cross, cutting off a vital humanitarian link for Armenian prisoners. With the closure of ICRC, detainees face greater isolation, fewer legal protections, and increased risks of abuse. Azerbaijan has also barred several international media outlets, raising alarm among human rights groups who warn this crackdown shields ongoing abuses from global scrutiny. The move underscores Azerbaijan's broader refusal to comply with international norms after its 2023 ethnic cleansing campaign in Artsakh. In addition, Azeri authorities also seek to close 4 UN offices: the UNDP, UNFPA, UNHCR, and UNICEF. The Armenian Center for Political Rights denounced Azerbaijan's systematic persecution of former Artsakh leaders, warning that the anti-Armenian hatred is deeply ingrained in Azerbaijani policy and education. The center highlighted Azerbaijan's abysmal human rights record, particularly its repeated failure to implement European court rulings. With the expulsion of the Red Cross and growing restrictions on international monitors, Armenian prisoners face worsening conditions, and the center called for concerted international and Armenian government action to defend their rights and prevent further abuses. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said that his government will make only proportionate and reasonable efforts to try to secure the release of the Armenians jailed in Azerbaijan. Pashinyan declined to say what exactly the government is doing for that purpose when he answered questions from opposition members of the Armenian parliament. Critics say his reluctance stems from a desire to avoid angering Baku, undermining Armenia's position. Pashinyan dismissed calls for stronger action and downplayed the significance of Armenian detainees, prompting further criticism from both domestic and international observers. Moreover, in a controversial shift, Pashinyan proposed dropping Armenia's legal cases against Azerbaijan at international courts. These cases seek accountability for war crimes, cultural destruction, and ethnic cleansing. Critics say Pashinyan's proposal undermines efforts to hold Azerbaijan responsible and could jeopardize Armenian prisoners' release and the right of Artsakh Armenians to return to their homes. His remarks have sparked outrage among legal experts and rights advocates who warn abandoning these cases hands Azerbaijan unchecked impunity. Former Armenian Foreign Minister Vartan Oskanyan accused Armenia's authorities of cowardice, Oskanyan arguing that the former leaders of Artsakh are freer in an Azerbaijani prison than Armenia's leaders in Yerevan. He recalled the words of former Artsakh President Bako Sahakyan, who stated in court that Artsakh's self-determination is not a matter of criminal or judicial proceedings. He dared to say this despite torture and pressure in a Baku prison, while Armenia's leadership is afraid to raise the issue of prisoners, Oskanyan emphasized. Yerishe Giragosyan, Armenia's representative for international legal matters, will step down following a previously agreed resignation, though reports of a mass staff resignation were denied. Government sources insist the office is functioning normally, But the resignation comes at a sensitive time as Armenia faces mounting criticism over its handling of legal disputes with Azerbaijan. Former Prime Minister of Armenia, Hrant Bagratyan, who was accused of calling for violence against Pashinyan, has been acquitted. The charges against him were brought based on his speech at a rally organized by the Miasin movement outside the Parliament building in April 2023, where he publicly stated that the current economic and security situation was created as a result of the foreign and domestic policies of Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. Armenia is once again confronted with reminders of its obligations to the Russian-led Collective Security Treaty Organization CSTO. Despite freezing its participation in the organization in February 2024, Armenia remains a formal member, which imposes certain obligations on Yerevan. Armenia could face consequences if it fails to pay its membership fees owed to the CSTO, a senior Russian diplomat warned. The CSTO membership freeze reflected a broader deterioration of Russian-Armenian relations. Euroasphalt CJSC, a company tied to Armenian speaker Alen Simonyan's brother, has declared bankruptcy despite securing over $340 million in government contracts. Reports suggest the company won bids through questionable practices, fueling suspicions of corruption. Critics say the bankruptcy highlights broader flaws in Armenia's procurement system, where politically connected companies benefit from opaque deals. Investigations into Euroasphalt's true ownership and financial dealings are ongoing. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan announced that all preparations are complete for opening regional economic and transport links between Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Nakhichevan. This includes routes from western Azerbaijan through Armenia to Nakhichevan and vice versa. The Mehri-Erask corridor connecting Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan is also ready for operation. Pashinyan emphasized that these transport routes are key to ongoing regional integration efforts. In a press conference during his visits to Ankara, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, after meeting with his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan, announced that Turkey and Azerbaijan will implement joint projects such as the Igdir-Nakhichevan gas pipeline, which will deliver Azerbaijani natural gas to Nakhichevan. Aliyev, who has categorically rejected Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's proposal to reopen the South Caucasus routes, stated that the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway, which connects Turkey with Azerbaijan, has significant advantages and is of great importance not only for Azerbaijan and Turkey, but also in the unification of the Turkic world in particular. He also repeated that Zangezur is Azerbaijani land, which was allegedly deliberately ceded to Armenia in order to complicate the lives of Azerbaijanis. The Azerbaijani authorities, completely ignoring and disregarding the calls of the international community, continue to punish individuals for exposing government corruption. Their last victim is blogger Arzu Sayatoglu, who was sentenced by the criminal court to 7 years of imprisonment for extortion of money. The Azerbaijani blogger, who criticized the Baku authorities on YouTube channels, called the charges fabricated. He was arrested a year ago and was awaiting trial in prison. Before his arrest, he had called for protests against the regime. International human rights organizations report that the number of political prisoners in Azerbaijan has exceeded 350. March 5 marks the birthday of Vazgen Sargsyan, national hero of Armenia and Artsakh. Known as Sparabet, Sargsyan played a pivotal role in Armenia's independence, the creation of its national army, and its early victories. As Minister of Defense and later Prime Minister, he championed national unity and sovereignty until his tragic assassination in 1999. His legacy endures as a symbol of resilience and unwavering patriotism. A new film dedicated to Sargsyan's, titled Vazgen, The Last General, started showing in Yerevan in cinemas on March 5th. The movie explores Vazgen Sargsyan's life, including his childhood, military service, and leadership, offering audiences an intimate look into the life of one of Armenia's most respected leaders. The role of Vazgen Sparabet is played by Horen Levonian. The film is expected to resonate deeply with Armenian audiences, particularly those who remember Sargsyan's contributions and leadership. It serves as a reminder of the sacrifices made by those who shaped the nation's history, their enduring legacy, and the vision they had for Armenia's future. The LA Kings have apologized to the Armenian community after discovering that scarves made for Armenian Heritage Night were produced in Turkey, an incident which sparked significant backlash from the Armenian community. The team and its merchandise partners acknowledged the oversight, apologized for the mistake, and offered full refunds or exchanges for affected fans. In 2024, Hairenik Association celebrated the 125th anniversary of the Hairenik and the 90th of the Armenian Weekly. Recognizing the need for modernization, the ARF Central Committee took the initiative of updating the visual identity and functionality of the paper's websites, enhancing their relevance in the digital age. Our guest is Hairenik Association's Director of PR and Brand Management, Arsine Valadian, who will shed light on this. Welcome, Arsine.
Thank you for having me, Ani.
We're so happy to have you. Arsine, the ARF Central Committee has tasked you with spearheading the launch of the newly designed websites. The Hairenik Weekly website was successfully relaunched last month, and the Armenian Weekly will follow this week. What can you tell us about the timing of this remodeling?
Well, Ani, it's such a significant thing, the fact that that the Hairenik Weekly has been in publication for 125 years. But I do think that there is something to be said about acknowledging the fact that the both publications have been so successful as part of the community, as serving the community for all these years. But it also needs to continue to work to be able to expand its audience and continue to be the leading voice and the leading media outlet for the region. And my hope is that, you know, the conversations that take place in these newspapers are ones that actually lead our community into a better informed path. So my goal is to serve that purpose for the Hairenik Association. And what we've done now so far is, with the Hairenik Weekly being rebranded, this week we will also be launching the new design for the Armenian Weekly. And with both of these newspapers online, the digital platform version, they will be more accessible. There will be more features, and over time you're going to start to notice features that allow translation features and a lot more presentation of the different types of content that we produce. And on top of that, it is also going to be expanded more in the social media realm. So there's a lot of preparation that we're going to be doing to reach people really where they look for their news, so that we are up in front of everything and we're making it available to anybody wherever they are looking.
Let's talk about the new capabilities the updated platforms will offer.
So what we're trying to do is incorporate tools like AI to be able to translate. Of course, you have a lot of resources, but people want to read quickly. They want to get into the article and find what they're looking for quickly. So we're going to give that access, the translation tools, the ability to engage more. There's going to be more opportunities for people to make comments and have conversations around the articles that are being published. And there's also going to be more of an effort to bring in more writers into the process, so that they will be able to give different perspectives from all angles of the community. So there's a lot of the tools mixed with the actual expanding of the journalistic side of the production as well. And then in the social media world, we're going to be focusing on repackaging a lot of that content in ways that will be accessible on platforms like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. We already have Hairenik Media there, so those platforms will be working together as well, and we'll be looking into other platforms as well to see where we can expand and make sure that people are able to find us where they want to read us.
Arsine, you touched upon this a bit, but can you tell us about the relation between this change and audience engagement? Is there improved accessibility for visitors?
There will be, and there's a lot of there's already the Armenian Weekly is the top English language newspaper, online, a digital newspaper that exists in the diaspora. It's already there, but this is going to be something where people will be able to find it a lot easier, and they will be. They already have the comment section, but we're going to make it more interactive in a lot of different ways. And it's just, there's going to be a lot more of conversation that's going to be taking place. And we're going to be using a lot more AI tools to streamline the process that we use to put out the information, and such things as like breaking news, information that can't wait for a week will be more accessible online on a regular basis. So I think you'll see a lot more content coming out from us.
Wonderful. Let's remind our viewers that our guest is Hairenik Association Director of PR and Brand Management, Arsine Valadian. Arsine, let's talk about preserving Western Armenian and Hairenik's role in that mission.
I love that subject because, very honestly, I grew up in the East Coast in the Hairenik family, and I grew up as an Iranian Armenian. But I'm actually married to a Kesabtsi, and I actually make sure that Western Armenian is spoken in our household, even living in Armenia. So it's something that I feel like the more that we give people opportunity to engage with using Western Armenian, the more the language has an opportunity to thrive. Even if you don't have a homeland where the language exists exclusively, it's still an opportunity to create that space online so that people can continue to use it regularly, practice it, and engage with it. And that's one of the beauties of Hairenik Weekly. The fact that it's been doing that for 125 years is a very significant thing. And I love reading it, very honestly, even though I'm used to Eastern Armenian here.
Same, I am too. What about the new Hairenik and Weekly logos? Tell us more about the design and the symbolic importance.
So there was an attempt to have a little bit of a nod to the historic value of the Hairenik masthead and the letters in the masthead, but there's also a need to modernize, right? So what I did was focused on the letters themselves. Over the years, we've had many variations of Hairenik and Armenian Weekly written out with different illustrations and symbolism throughout. But at the end of the day, what we are is a news outlet. And when it comes down to that, it's about the written word. And so what I wanted to do was create something that had this almost historical calligraphy style version of the letter that transforms into the modern version. And actually, the inspiration that I got from it was from the Hairenik's old typesetting metal pieces of letters that I know that exist in the Hairenik, since I used to go visit the basement every once in a while back in the day. But yeah, it was something along those lines of having both incorporated to remind people that we are still rooted in a history, but we are modern to the point where we are still the leading news outlet for the diaspora. So I hope that that translates, and even if it doesn't, I hope it looks good and people still enjoy it in a way that they'll be able to recognize it and see it quickly and know that this is their reliable news source.
It does. I love it. Great job. Anything else we can tell our viewers about the initiative?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a personal aspect of it. Of course, many might remember that I did work for the Weekly in the 90s. And, I grew up in the OIF, and I used to write for the Weekly ever since I was 8 years old. And I really, there was a personal choice to come back to the Hairenik because there was a lot of me that understood the fact that this is such an important part of our community and an important bridge as well for us to be able to connect with Armenia and Armenia to better understand us. There's a lot of history that's involved in the Weekly, in that there's everything that's happened over the last 125 years. You can find articles that pertain to any subject that we've discussed in the newspaper since then. So it's such an important thing, but I want people to be able to find it easier. The irony about the Weekly is that it's such an incredible asset. There's so much substance to it. But the fact that people haven't really engaged with it is more so the fact that we just haven't shown off how great we are. At least we have, but we can do so much more. So the purpose of me wanting to, take on this mission was actually something a lot more personal than just, oh, great, a new opportunity. No, I really wanted to make this newspaper something that people will look up to and read the second that they see it in their screens or wherever they are.
Well, we are thrilled to have you back as part of the Hairenik Media family. Arsine Valadian, the Hairenik Director of PR and Brand Management. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Don't forget to follow us on our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X. Good night.